Put your hands up for the podcast. We gon' really do it for the podcast. We can start now, man. What's going on, man?
Not too much. Are we rolling?
We just ran right into it. I didn't give you even like a 3, 2, 1 or anything like that.
Okay. We're recording and everything?
Yeah, I'm recording and everything.
Okay.
We're professionals, man.
I believe you.
You know, this brings me back to we remember that we did a podcast a few years ago.
I didn't know if I could bring it up or not because I don't think it's on the internet anymore.
No, it's not. I still have it on my computer though.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, you can bring it up. Yeah.
I was like, it's like you deleted it at some point.
Yeah.
Because you constantly reinvent yourself. I see. Like every so
That's
often,
funny.
it's like it's a new YouTube. It's a new whatever. And like I guess I fell by the wayside. I was determined not to be fitting into the new Haim Samuels universe or whatever. So it's off the internet, folks.
Yeah. No, but we brought you back, man. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to recreate it exactly. We have our scripts ready. We're doing it exactly. But will that ever see the light of day again? Will anybody be able to watch that ever again?
That's a good question. I have to wait till I'm like super, super famous, so that I can go back and be like, oh, these are my old videos and stuff like that.
What is it about it that was so bad?
No, that interview, there was nothing about it.
I thought it was a good interview.
It was a really, that's why I kept it. Okay. Some of the stuff I've deleted, like when I started, I deleted a ton of my stuff from my previous channel. And I did not keep all of that stuff. Some of that stuff went to the wayside. But that was a good interview. I still have it somewhere. I can send it to you, actually.
I'd like to see it again.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting as a document. This must have been like 4 years ago, maybe 3, 4 years.
Was it really that long ago, huh?
Because it was just before I released Ramekin, or just after I
Come
released
on,
Ramekin.
really?
Yeah.
That's kind of fitting. I gotta tell you.
We talked about the first Ramekin in the interview, and you hadn't seen it yet.
No, I remember that. Yeah, I remember we talked about it. Yeah.
We talked about the existence of the movie.
Right.
We talked about movies in general, and making movies and all that. But yeah, and so we've come full circle because some of your viewers may know you're in the second movie.
I'm in the sequel, yeah.
Have you seen the first movie yet? That's really the question.
Well, you know, I mean,
you saw it.
I've seen the full thing, of course, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, actually, I still have your ramekin right here, man. It's very useful right now.
Yeah, you gotta say it right though, Ramekin.
Ramekin.
It's not Ramekin.
I grew up very religious, and we do like a lot of us. So anytime I hear like an I think my mind officially goes to us.
So I'm instantly anti-Semitic.
A little bit, yeah.
Constantly.
A little bit. Although you are like half Jewish, no?
I think it's like
there's some Jew in you, man.
I think it's like a third, which I didn't know you could split in thirds, right? Like that's like a threesome then at some point.
Well, Jews are like, we're very meticulous. Either you're fully Jewish or you're not Jewish at all. That's kind of the way
Really?
That's how the religious people do it.
Okay,
yeah.
So
if your mom has to be Jewish. If she, wow, look at this.
Look at this. Unprofessional.
Wow, and it's okay. I probably should have answered this because it's
Is that important? Was that like a gig?
It might be a gig, yeah, but forget it.
It's just gonna be me here while you're off to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I'll finish the episode.
Yeah.
No, I'm a third Ashkenazi.
Right.
Or Ashkenazi.
There you go.
I said it right,
there you go. Yeah.
Call back to like 30 seconds.
About
ago. I'm a third Ashkenazi. I'm like a third. It's funny because when you do I did like the DNA kit because I got like interested in it or whatever because there's like mysteries in my past. Not my past, but my lineage. I'm the queen. So yeah, it was like a third Ashkenazi, a third Irish, Scottish, Welsh. They just kind of melded all together, just like whatever, that area. And then a third Iberian, which I was like, what the fuck is that?
What is that?
Iberian. And apparently it's like Greek, Spanish, Mediterranean, kind of like a weird area that kind of seeps into like Austria and Hungary, which made sense because I knew some of my ancestors from Austria and Hungary or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of weird. But the thing that I found out about doing DNA tests is that Jewish people are overrepresented in the DNA samples because they're more interested in finding out lineages and stuff. So basically the way the DNA testing works, like when you're looking into your whatever, is that they're checking based off other samples that exist. So like Jewish ancestry will more clearly come up versus other stuff where they're not. It's like more like amorphous regions of the world.
That's interesting.
So like I always heard this was just like family lore or whatever, that I was like part Mongolian, but that didn't come up in my thing at all. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But then I found out like Mongolians are like extremely underrepresented in DNA tests, so like they're not getting it.
So you've got both spectrums pretty much.
Yeah, I've got like, I mean, in theory, maybe I'm Mongolian, I don't know, but I wouldn't know until like massive amounts of Mongolians decide to get really into DNA testing. They wouldn't know what Mongolian is as well.
Right.
So I don't know.
You like, could be Welsh.
I think I one of the three. It's like Scottish, Irish, Welsh. Is like, that I definitely am. But like, yeah, it's so Jews are like, it's very specifically well represented, and then certain other races, certain other regions, they're just not as into it, so they don't really know what that DNA would look like.
Why are we so into it? Because my brother took the test. 100% Ashkenazi Jew. 100% Ashkenazi Jew. So there's nothing more depressing than that.
You should get your money back if it's 100%.
Right. There's nothing there. That's all it is. It's very disappointing. I feel like it's the only point in my life where I was hoping I was adopted because.
Just for interest? Or?
Well, he's 100% Ashkenazi Jew. I didn't take the test, so I was like, hopefully I'm adopted. I could take the test. Maybe I could come out something cooler, you know?
Yeah, it gets boring if it's like 100%.
Yeah,
I would say. That's probably why the Mongolians don't do it. Maybe they like just know it'd be like
100%. Do you think Mongolians, they're very insular? They'd be very specific.
I mean, how many Mongolians do you know besides me?
And we're not even sure.
We're not even sure. It's literally just what I heard that, like, back in my lineage or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who cares about where?
Yeah. You know, it's about the present. It's about the future.
Yeah, it's about me now as
exactly.
Living entity.
Legacy.
You know.
Legacy you have
so
now.
What's your first question? What do you got?
How many minutes are we into this?
35.
Wow.
We covered DNA.
Yeah. Definitely not what I expected we would talk about at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
What's my first question?
Yeah, what do you got from me? Well, why am I here? Who am I?
Yeah.
Give them the background.
Well, first of all, I'm going to do an introduction. Okay, you're probably watching this right now. So I've already done an introduction at the beginning, but okay, I'll do it in the middle. So I'm sitting down with a friend of mine, Cody Clarke. Cody Clarke is an independent filmmaker. He's been making films for at least over 10 years, right?
Yeah, it's about, maybe 10, 11. I probably started it like 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, he's been written multiple books. And I'm really excited to talk about movies and other stuff. We did sit down a few years ago. Maybe I'll show like a little clip while we're saying this, like over the thing a little bit, so they could see both of us. I was really fat back then.
Really?
I was very fat. Yeah.
I didn't notice.
Yeah.
I was just having a
good time. Well, I wasn't like morbidly obese, but I wasn't like overly noticeably fat. But okay, so I guess my first question is, I mean, you can take us a little bit through.
How did you lose all that weight?
When do you first start getting interested in filmmaking, man?
I think you asked me this last time, but
did I? Yeah.
I'll give a short.
I don't have any new questions. Sorry.
No, it's all right. I got started the way a lot of kids my age, I'm 34, got started, which is my parents would tape a lot of movies off of HBO and Showtime. So they would justify paying for HBO and Showtime, which was the premium channel back in the day, where you could watch movies that were uncut, because if they played on TV or they played on cable, sometimes they get censored or like they get cut for commercials or whatever. HBO and Showtime, they differentiated themselves by playing just straight the movie, straight through, uncut, whatever. So they would tape them off of TV on VHS tapes. So we had like you would have bookcases. We had like bookcases full of like VHS tapes. And on each tape there would be like 3 different movies. They would just tape whatever was interesting that they liked, that they knew they liked, or like seemed interesting or whatever. And so I grew up with that in my periphery, and I would watch a lot of movies over and over again, certain movies over and over again. But
were there any particular movies you could think of right now that you watched over and over?
Yeah, I mean, I geared towards like the comedies. So like, when I was really young, I was watching stuff like Wayne's World, Tommy Boy. The classic like early 90s comedies, which still are my favorite, and I've seen them a bazillion times. Ghostbusters, a lot of the like SNL to movie making pipeline type movies. That's just what I was really geared towards and interested in. So comedy definitely got me into movies, and my parents told me like when I was very very young, I would watch stuff like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin and Marx Brothers and Abbott and Costello, like all those like really old classic stuff. They would notice that like I would pick up on the humor of it all. You know, obviously it's pretty broad if it's like physical and stuff, but like I was keyed into that, so they were like, oh, he likes funny stuff. So definitely I have like whatever would be the same lineage as like somebody who became a stand-up comedian or something, or got into comedy writing. I was watching SNL at a very early age. I was just being inundated with humor and sketch and all that stuff. So that's what taught me what movies are, and like I didn't understand until maybe I was in like my early teens that like movies could have a purpose other than making you laugh. Like I that seemed to me like the be all end all of like what a movie can do. It was like if you're not there to like make people laugh, like what even is the point? And then I saw like I got into like Paul Thomas Anderson movies and Wes Anderson movies where like there's maybe some humor, but they're accomplishing something else. But I don't really remember myself being into dramas until at least my teens, and then I got pretty heavy into darker stuff. But like I like, even in drama, like I like the jokes in drama. Like I feel like the most underrated jokes in the world are jokes that like work in what's ostensibly like not even a comedy, because like you're laughing on a deeper level and you're laughing when you don't expect it. And it is all stuff that I think imbues into my own work. Like even if I'm handling something that's a bit heady a topic or uncomfortable topic, there will always be some joke that kind of catches you off guard and like is funnier because it's not surrounded by a million other jokes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think you gave the same answer that you did 4 years ago. So.
Yeah, you remember. But yeah, and as far as filmmaking itself, when I was really young, I would say like early teens or so, me and my friends with just like a VHS camcorder.
So you were one of those kids. You could say
I was
that you.
One of those kids, but I was always more into it than everybody else.
Right.
So like
I can see that
they had fun for like an afternoon or an evening. And like I always wished we could have spent a little bit more time planning it out or editing it or writing it, but they just wanted to see themselves on their TV.
Right.
Like, that's all they cared about. I was more into like, no, we could do something.
We were the visionary.
Yeah, but nobody was listening.
It was misunderstood visionary.
Yeah, it was just I cared about it and they didn't. So I didn't really have anybody to do it with. So I didn't have a video camera on my own until I was in my mid-teens, at least, like until I was like 15 or 16. I don't think I had and then I had like what was called like a high 8 camera, like a DV, like early DV.
Do you still have some of those videos, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the ones from when I was really young because it was my friend's camera and like he probably just taped over them like all the time. But I do have some of the stuff from when I was like in my teens, and it's like it's all bad, you know. It's not, but you have to put in the time and the familiarity if you want to get good. Like, there's no time to start that's like too early, and there's no time to start that's like if you want to do it, just do it now. Like, just do it today. Like every day it gets easier and easier, technology wise, and also like. If you're older, you're not going to make the same mistakes as somebody who's younger. So like a lot of the mistakes you make when you're younger, I'm sure it's the same with like stand-up and stuff like that. Part of it's just being young, like in general. And you might think like, oh, I'm just a weak stand-up. It's like, no, you're just a weak person. You know what I mean? Like you're just young. You're just kind of like all over the place.
That's a really great way to. A really great way to phrase it.
So like people that are like, oh, I'm like in my 40s or 50s. I don't know if I could start making movies or doing stand-up or whatever. Yeah. It's like, yeah, but you know what it's like to be a person, and a lot of drama, a lot of comedy is what it's like to be a person. So, and just comfortability in your own skin. Like, even if you're like a loser in your 40s or 50s, you're still more comfortable in your own skin than like somebody that's a teenager, because you're not going through all the hormone stuff that like affects your mood and like your brain and all that. You're a bit more settled as a person, so there's never like a bad time to start something. It's total like BS.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's always something that you can bring, I think, especially when you're like older, that you can bring that a lot of people that are starting out really don't have those either qualifications or that experience, you know. A lot of people, when they're older, it's interesting to see people when they're much older start doing this stuff, because a lot of times they bring a very specific background that you wouldn't necessarily see in a lot of younger, you know.
They'll come at a different angle to everything, and they won't be bogged down by what's current and what's new and hip. So their stuff might end up being a little bit more timeless because it's not so specific to now.
Right.
Whereas like a young person is like constantly like riding the zeitgeist of like what it is to be a 20-something, what it is to be a teenager, whatever. You know, that's always kind of changing, and like, you know, somebody who's older who's seen enough waves to know that like these things come and go, they won't be so focused on what's current, I guess.
And they probably already, you know, through so many years, they've already kind of formulated a very specific way to look at the world already, or a very specific way to either do comedy or to look at movies, and they've kind of already settled down into their own sort of opinion on things. So they kind of bring with them their own, I guess, perspective that's a lot more grounded. You know, somebody who's younger.
Yeah, and I don't, as a viewer, I don't always need to like get references. So like, I appreciate when somebody has like older references that like most people won't get, because it's like little gateways of like exploration. So if somebody's like referencing something I don't know what it is, I can look into it. That was what I would do growing up. Of like, I know I don't know if you're familiar with Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a thing where like, for anyone who doesn't know, it's where it was a show, and now I guess you can stream it and stuff, where like people would talk over movies and make fun of them. But they were known for having a lot of very esoteric references in their jokes. So they would like say somebody looks like some actor, but like the actor they would say they looked like wasn't like De Niro or something. It would be some obscure B-movie actor that you would only know if you were like really deep into stuff. So like, that's an exploration point. You can look up who that is, and then you find out who that is, and then you see what kind of movies they're in. I'm always chasing opportunities for exploration. I worked at video stores for many, many years. I was a video store guy, which isn't a thing anymore. You know, I feel like, you know how they give like Native Americans like casinos and stuff?
Yeah.
Because there's so few Native Americans. I feel like they should give like former video store guys like video stores, like where we have it on. It's like our own land that belongs to us.
Right.
We can have a video store on that land, and nobody can like tear it down
and
take it away from us.
And you can
keep all the revenue from the video store. Because I just feel like an endangered species as a human, as a video store guy.
I feel like it's probably going to sort of be like record stores. I can see it coming back a little bit here. Because you do see it. You do see video stores sometimes around the area a little bit, and it's like there's something so unique about it. You just want, for me at least, I want to go inside and just buy kind of a VHS. You know,
it's just so much better than streaming. And I worked at the last video store in Brooklyn before it closed down. So I'm like,
really, I
worked at the cool video store in my teens, and I worked at the final video store. So I'm like, I'm deep into it.
Yeah,
like I'm OG video store guy. I remember when DVD kind of changed everything. I remember when, you know, Blu-ray was like, what's that? You know, like I went through all the phases. I know more about running a video store than anybody ever needs.
There's something so funny about that, because
it's obsolete.
That's what I'm saying. You have all this information.
Yeah.
What to do with it?
I remember the software you use for the rentals. I remember like the hotkeys and like all that stuff. It's just useless information. Yeah. But video stores, people think they have access to everything through streaming.
Right.
They don't. You know, it's the idea of like movies disappearing off a streaming service, which happens like periodically because the licensing runs out. Like, if a video store was like, hey, you better rent Ghostbusters this week or else we're not going to have it for a couple of years, that would be the worst video store you ever heard of in your life.
Yeah.
Like the fact that like you buy the copy, you put it on the shelf, and it stays on there until the disc wears out or the tape wears out, and then you get another one. That makes so much more sense than this thing of like, oh man, I better watch like the James Bond movies this week, or else they're gonna get moved to like this other streaming service that I don't have, which I'll have to subscribe to. And people don't realize how much money they spend on streaming services. It's like, yeah, you can steal it, and everybody does that. We can get into why they condone that, which is a weird thing. So streaming services, they like when you steal their thing because it makes you... Okay, so I'll get into that later.
No,
that's a whole thing.
I see we're going down a rabbit hole a little bit.
But people do spend a lot on streaming services.
Right.
Maybe not you or I. Maybe not somebody who's like logging into their friends or whatever. Not that I do that. Why would I do that?
If anybody's watching this.
Yeah. But, okay, so the people that do end up spending a lot. They spend more than they would renting movies from a store, and they get less enjoyment or whatever, because a lot of the stuff that's on there is just crap. It always seems like there's more to watch than there actually is, if you really think about like what's worth watching. If you went into a video store, you could come away every single time. If the video store guy like me is good, I can guarantee you walk out of that video store with a movie that you love every single time, because I just get a sense of your taste, and I was really good at that. I was really good at like people just coming up to me, what's good? Like, what would I like? I'd ask them like what movies they like, what they'd seen recently they like, and I could easily in my head come up with like at least 2 or 3 movies that I knew for sure they hadn't seen and that they would love. And that's curation, and you can't, there's no price tag on that. That's like you're giving people memories that will never disappear, because it's like the first time they saw so-and-so movie that they love now. There's no curation with streaming and algorithms. But these services, like, people don't realize about Netflix. Netflix is an arm of the government. And I'm not, like, this isn't like Alex Jones, like, or whatever. This is like, well, Alex Jones is right about a lot of stuff. I'm not trying to throw Alex Jones.
He weirdly is. He's weird. In recent years, he's somehow a lot of what people were, like, he was saying, it's a little strange.
Look, I've always liked the guy. I've known about him since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
He's always been a fixture in American discourse.
He's been around since the 90s, Alex Jones?
Oh, he's been around since the early 90s.
Really?
I came to know him, not personally.
Right.
I haven't had the pleasure. I came to know of him late 90s. Like, he was doing a lot of stuff.
What was he doing where did you see him in the 90s? Where was he?
He was on
TV or something?
He was kind of like, okay, so out of the Austin, like, filmmaking movement, which is like Richard Linklater and like Wes Anderson too, kind of in that Texas area, but they were like filmmakers out of Austin. Everyone knows Linklater specifically as the Austin filmmaker. But any kind of weirdos in Austin, like Alex Jones, were just very well known at that time. And he was just he would do broadcasts, he would do documentaries, he would do all sorts of stuff. But why did I bring up Alex Jones? I forget. Oh yeah, so Netflix is in all but name, specifically, it is a arm of the government. So a lot of ex-government people go to Netflix and get paid millions and millions of dollars. Everybody knows about the Obamas. They work on the programming for Netflix. Other people in government, they move from government to Netflix because Netflix is a delivery system for messaging. So they're always looking for ways to get people to care about information instead of just dismiss it. So like if somebody watches like TV and there's like a PSA for like, don't smoke, man. Like the classic like cheesy examples, like there are things that people are just like, all right, whatever, that was lame. It's like, hey, fellow kid, that kind of stuff. But that's evolved so much, that like classic 80s, 90s thing, like that's evolved so much to the point that like the delivery system for messaging now is you get into somebody else's streaming service, so you're somewhere where you shouldn't be, which is already cool. You aren't somewhere where you think you're receiving messaging. Meanwhile, Hollywood and the streaming industry is all about messaging. Like it's all about what are people going to gain from watching this thing in like what are they going to be thinking about instead of what they were thinking about previously. It's just a subtle conditioning. People believe the information more if they access it themselves and if they choose what to watch themselves or whatever. So much like in the early days of television where people were skeptical about like what messages you're receiving from the TV because they knew it was a highly persuasive device. They knew it was more persuasive than books. They knew it was more persuasive than anything that had ever come before. So people were really skeptical about television. But streaming is like next level as far as like messaging is concerned. Like if you had told the guys like Marshall McLuhan is a name of a person who was very skeptical about television and the downside of television. A lot of what he said is like dead accurate, not just for TV, but for the evolutions of TV as far as like the 24-hour news cycle, and then that led into streaming, etc. If you told these guys like what it would become, first of all, they would probably know, like they would follow that lead. They would follow that path in their own mind already, like they kind of knew it, but they would be frightened that like nobody cared. You know, it's like it's a very slow, slippery slope, but we've gotten to the point where we're receiving information that has nothing to do with what our actual value systems are as human beings. And you know, that's not to say that like, you know, people think of like Hollywood as like run by like liberals or leftists. Like this is like bigger than that. It's about authoritarianism. It's about war hawkishness, about neoconservatism. It's about all these things that are really about controlling the world, and you know, almost in that kind of like New World Order territory of like one government that controls everything. A lot of the messaging is geared towards that in ways that people have no idea, and people are getting paid millions and millions, and Netflix is operating at a constant debt intentionally so that they don't have the kind of oversight that a money-making entity would. So Netflix loses $8 billion every single year. Intentionally, completely intentionally. They also spend about $8 billion a year. They have a constant money flow. They do a lot of money laundering with the shows and movies that they purchase. So they'll overpay for things that nobody would ever pay that much for. It's a really corrupt organization, and everything I'm saying in this video right now, in 5-10 years, is going to be common knowledge. I guarantee it. So go back to this video, folks.
Seriously.
If you don't believe me now, like just look at it later.
Yeah.
Netflix is an arm of the government. I'm part Ashkenazi and
maybe Mongolian.
I used to watch old videotapes.
Yeah.
That's the episode. Now,
yeah.
What else do you got?
Well, I don't know where to Okay, I wanted to transition to your new movie coming up, but I wanted to first of all, I wanted to say thank you, obviously, for putting me in your movie, man. I just want to talk a little bit about that experience. That was really cool because that came at a time where I was kind of transitioning from stand-up to acting, and I've talked about this on my channel, but yeah, like I'd been doing stand-up for about 5-6 years, really started to burn out. And I'd kind of known this in the back of my head. I really wasn't doing a lot of shows, and I just wasn't intentionally going out and performing. And I kind of was thinking what I really wanted to do, and I know acting came to mind. That was kind of what stand-up was. It was kind of gearing myself towards acting. I wanted to, if I was already kind of invested in stand-up, and at that point I felt like, okay, if I can get big on stand-up, then I can kind of transition into acting. That was sort of the goal. But I decided, why do something like that? If I really wanted to do acting, if I really wanted to do filmmaking, I should just throw myself into that. Yeah. And sort of at that point is when we talked, and you said you had a part, and you were interested in casting somebody, but you couldn't find the right person to cast. And I remember you gave me the script, and I read it, and then I did the scene, and you were like, you know what? There's nobody I can really think of that fits this role so well.
Yeah, you kind of like, it's funny, like when you're casting something, what you're looking for is somebody's voice or performance that gets in your head and doesn't leave, basically. And that can happen instantaneously, or it can happen a couple days after you saw them read or whatever. Like, they just become the character in your head, and you just can't veer from that. When you're casting something, what you're looking for is somebody that gets in your head, doesn't leave. So that can happen when you're hearing them in the moment. You're just like, oh, that's the person. It can happen on the way home. It can happen days later. But like when he did the lines, as I was working on the script, because I wasn't even done with the script yet, I just kept hearing his delivery, his voice in my head. And it's about being right for something. You know, everybody's right for some character. And it's just about when, like, if you even encounter that person, if the stars align. I think there's a misconception with acting that, like, to be a good actor, you have to have, like, a lot of range, be right for a lot of different things. It's not the case. Like, Daniel Day-Lewis, like, one of the best actors in the world, everybody would agree. Like, he's not going to work in, like, the Jonah Hill role in Superbad. You know, like, you're not going to put him in... Right. There's no... Everybody has something that's insurmountable. Like, right. I was watching a movie last night, which is a Robert De Niro movie. I forget the name of it now. Stanley and Iris. It's a movie that came out like 1991 or 1990. Nobody ever heard of, but he was in it, and he was supposed to be drunk in like this one scene, and he played drunk so terribly that I just finally realized, like, oh, he never plays drunk because he sucks at playing drunk. But I never would have known that if I hadn't seen him have to play it in this one scene in this fairly obscure movie.
Right.
But even great actors, like everybody would consider De Niro a great actor, even great actors have their blind spots or things they can't do. He played drunk so poorly that, like, you would swear he'd never seen a drunk person in his life. It was just piss poor. Like,
well, now I gotta go see this movie now.
It's okay.
I'm just gonna see this specific scene.
Yeah, you'll see what I'm talking. You'll watch it, be like, that's he doesn't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
It's just a muscle he doesn't have. So when you're getting into acting, it's like you'll be right for certain things, and that's okay. You don't have to be right for everything. You just have to be right for what you're right for. Know your lines. Speak clearly. These are all like stuff that David Mamet goes over in the only great acting book, which is a book called True and False. It's about the bare bones minimalist theory of acting, which is you got to know where to stand, you got to know what you're supposed to say, and you got to say it clearly. That everything else is BS, because if you're right for the role, you can say the lines clearly, where you're supposed to, looking at whatever you're supposed to look at, and it will be right.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to satisfy those basic things.
Okay.
Now, acting classes can be good as far as familiarity, just like learning lines, doing, like, feeling what it's like to be around other people that are acting, feeling what it's like to be in the scene. That familiarity is all great, but acting itself is something that anybody can do, because anybody can satisfy those basic requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were shooting Ramekin 2, like, I would have you do lines over, and it was just because, you know, sometimes you're a little mumbly when you talk.
Oh, 100%.
And so
yeah.
I would have to make sure that the line was clear for the people listening at home, because if it's confusing or if they miss a line, like, you know, I wrote every line in the script. It wasn't improvised. Things had to be gotten across in the scene in a specific way. So, like, 9 times out of 10, if I have an actor do something again, it's usually because maybe there was a sound that, like, went over one of their lines, and, like, that we have to do it again because, like, somebody dropped something, or there's a plane going by, or somebody, you know, mumbled it or missed a word that was necessary. That's what I'm looking for. And if people understand that that's what a director wants, I don't think they'll be as scared of acting as they were before they started acting, if that makes any sense. Like, because people think about, like, how right they are, like, was I feeling that delivery? Did I feel right? And it's like, the feeling is, like, it has nothing, the camera isn't capturing the feeling so much as it's capturing the illusion of the feeling.
Right.
So you can say something that is very powerfully deep to somebody watching at home, but you weren't feeling in the moment whatsoever.
Right.
It's not this thing where you have to be and feel and emote in like this genuine way always.
Sometimes they fit together.
Sometimes it lines up, but you have to understand that, like, just like if you were a rock musician and you were playing some song that like everybody loves at a show and you just weren't feeling it that one night, but they maybe can't tell whatsoever because you're just performing it.
Right.
When you're performing, it doesn't matter what you're feeling within you. It's about just doing it and trusting that that's enough, so to speak. Yeah. Obviously, there's cases where people they let their emotions take over their performance in a negative way because they get in their head about it. That's different. But if people understood how little you have to do to actually act, I think we'd have more actors, we'd have more filmmakers, we'd have more creatives, because creativity wouldn't be the scary thing as much.
Right.
A lot of creativity is just satisfy the logistics of what you're trying to do. Like, is somebody looking in the right direction? Is somebody saying the right lines? Are they cast right for the role, which you should have satisfied way earlier on? But all these things that are like very easy, like yes or no flowchart type things. Like, I think if people understood that that's more the job than being some artist or whatever, like if people knew that was the job, it just wouldn't be daunting. Creativity.
Well, you seem to remind me of directors kind of like Woody Allen and Clint Eastwood, which I have a lot of appreciation for. They're you can see it a lot in their movies. There's sort of an effortless feel when you watch a lot of their movies, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But where Clint Eastwood's pretty much famous for the one take.
Yeah.
You do the one take and that's it. Like there's that story with Matt Damon. He says like he was filming for the first time and he'd heard that there's like the one take rule, and so he does the one take, but he feels like maybe I could do another one. So he's like, Clint, do you think we could do another take? And Clint's like, why? So we can waste everybody else's time? And he's like, all right. And then for the rest of the set, he was just, I very much like that approach. Just kind of like, just do the take. You don't have to do a billion takes as long as...
Yeah, I do things over because I need to. I don't do things over because I want to necessarily.
Right. But you know what? Some directors, thrive from doing it a billion times. I don't know, like Fincher seems to be a director like that, or...
I think that's a different, like... I don't know that that's filmmaking per se, because it's like... it's a little bit similar to like if you were recording an album and you had to get a guitar part like exactly right. That's, I think what Fincher is doing, because I know, all these things about all these directors, and in my mind, if I were to like speak to Fincher, I'd be like, he's more of a composer, or rather, sorry, not a composer, but he's more of a engineer. He's more of like he's trying to get the right take to just piece together. So it's like he's doing it piecemeal, like if you're recording like an album or something. Mm-hmm. Whereas like what I'm trying to get, and what Eastwood or Allen or any director that tends towards less takes, they're trying to get an honesty of a theatrical performance. So like as if somebody were watching somebody do it on stage, except the shot is a little bit different and we're controlling a little bit more elements. But I want something that like people feel like actually happened. Whereas
like a naturalism to it, sort of.
Fincher is trying to create like a perfect record, like a perfect album.
I get what you're saying.
I'm trying to create like a perfect live album, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's a little more rawness to it, but it's a little like I think what you're like. I hear what you're saying. There's like, it feels like there's sort of Tarantino a little bit, where there's an element of kind of stage-like to it, or
yeah, he's.
It feels like a movie.
You could do Reservoir Dogs on stage, and he's
exactly
like he would want to do that one day. He would want to do a theater version of Reservoir Dogs, but he does have his precision quality. Like a Kill Bill is like it's like you're listening to an album. Like it's just like so precise. So for my own work, I'm definitely more trying to create a great live performance rather than like a great studio album, because like a great live album and a great studio album are like totally different sonically. You just don't even listen to them in the same way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it seems like that's what directors that do a lot of takes are going for, and that's not what I'm trying to accomplish.
Right.
To me, filmmaking is recording something honest that is the perfect version of something for that time. It's not the perfect version ever. And I think if you think about it as the perfect version ever, that opens up like this Pandora's box can of worms of like, where do you draw the line ever? Because then it's like, is the lighting exactly perfect? Is this? You end up making it more artificial than you're trying to. And I like some Fincher stuff, but I think that's why I don't connect to a lot of his stuff, is because it just ends up feeling too artificial for my tastes.
Yeah.
But I tend towards like you said, I don't like all Eastwood movies, but I like a lot of Eastwood movies. I like a lot of Woody Allen movies. I don't even think there's a Woody Allen movie I hate. I think even the bad ones are pretty good.
I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah.
Like, even for me, it's like even the bad ones, you can still see that there's a really great director in even in the badness a little bit. Like,
and I like when he sucks more than I like when some other people suck. Like,
yes, exactly.
I'll take like a sucky Woody Allen movie over like a sucky
Michael
Fincher
Bay
movie, or I don't want to create dividing lines with like specific movies, but everybody has movies they like or dislike by a given director, so they know what I'm talking about. Like, you kind of the directors that become your favorite are the ones where, like, even if they suck, you still like what they did.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we only got a couple minutes left. So
really?
I know. We just kind of just went by pretty fast.
Can this be like a special like? Extra
we could make it like a little longer.
We'll do like a Joe Rogan 3 hour.
I don't know. I don't know if I even have the mental fortitude for that. But why I was laughing before, just to end off this segment, was because the character in this movie is sort of like a Nebuch kind of creepish guy. He's not a Nebuch. You ever heard that word before? Yeah, like a schlubby guy, not very cool. And so when you were like, this guy is perfect, I'm like, there was a bittersweetness a little bit to it, where I was able to.
I think it's like an ability. Like, if you think of those muscles that you have.
Yeah.
That's the best way to think about it, because it's a muscle that somebody else doesn't have.
Right.
Or somebody would try to do and it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Sure.
I wasn't sure if I had that, so it's good to know that I can really.
It's so funny. Okay, so every actor. Here's what people don't understand about acting. Yeah. Okay. Every actor is beautiful. Okay. So every performer that you see in a movie that you think, oh, they're playing a nerd, or oh, they're playing a whatever. If you saw them in life, you'd be like, oh, that person is more attractive than I was ready for.
Yeah.
Every person that I can't stress this enough, from like a 400-pound actor to like a rail thin model, every single actor is beautiful, because there's something in actors where they have this star shine to them that has nothing to do with what they look like or what they're playing or anything. They're all in this like heightened reality where they're like really hot, but you don't realize it because the story isn't letting you realize it intentionally. Yeah. So like, you're like a hot dude, like you're just an attractive individual, but like in that moment you're able to not have people be distracted by that. Yeah. You're able to tap it, like, it's this chameleon-like quality that actors have, where they can make you.
That's the podcast telling us we got to wrap it up. No, I live across from a fire station, so.
Apparently.
Yeah. Imagine having to sleep here.
Yeah.
Well, you were saying about how beautiful I am.
Okay. So, every actor is beautiful and is able to turn that off, and that's really the skill. Yeah. They're able to make you focus on what they want you to focus on. So if I present you as a loser, dorky like character, I'm making the audience focus on that aspect, which is an illusion anyway. I'm conjuring an illusion. So making people focus on the fact that you're a little mumbly. I'm making people focus on the fact that you have glasses on. I'm making people focus on the fact that you're a little bit uncomfortable being on screen because you haven't acted much. I'm making people focus on like your beard situation where it's a little patchy or whatever. Yeah. I'm underlining all these things that don't actually matter as far as like who you are as a person or whatever, because anybody in a room with you is gonna be like, oh, he's like an attractive dude. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I 100% agree with you on that one. Yeah,
You're attracted to?
yeah, very much.
Like,
No, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, and I never really took offense to it. I always thought it was just a funny concept. But I appreciate the way that you explain that.
Yeah, but it's something that people don't realize. Like,
yeah,
especially like critics. Any critic who like criticizes like some movie or actors, if they were in the same room as these actors, they would be starstruck, even if it's like some movie that nobody's seen.
Right.
Just because there's a presence to a performer that's just different. Like, it's just like, it has nothing to do with what their teeth look like or how tall they are or how overweight they are. There's something hot about actors that they're able to tap into that transcends anything that they could ever have going on physically or like vibe-wise or anything. It's just a hot profession and it's a hot pursuit. Yeah, I hope that makes sense.
I very much appreciate it. And I think that's an interesting you're covering a lot of ideas in this. This
is a pretty deep thing. Like, like when you showed up on set and like you're around actresses, every actress you are ever, and like I know you do acting classes, every actress you are around has a magnet within them that like there's something pleasurable about looking at them, not in like a sexual creepy way.
Right.
It's just about like your eyes just like resolve and like relax while they're looking at them, because it's like, oh, okay, that visual, that makes sense. For some reason they just have this quality of like, you're not uncomfortable in like a way that's like,
right.
It's just like they feel very human in this like.
Well, I'll say this: I don't know if everyone thinks the way that you think, but the fact that you do think that way, I think, is really incredible.
It's about the mindset with like how you approach. Like, this is how I approach it.
Yeah.
Other people will find this isn't like a universal thing. Other people will find what they key into and stuff. But to me, anytime I'm around actors and actresses, that's how I feel. Is that if they're right for a role, obviously, but there's a comfort due to the fact that they have this magnetism within them that they're able to tap into.
I think that's really interesting, man.
Yeah,
okay, so
and you have that quality. So
well, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I had a good director, so.
Well, I tried.
Yeah.
If people liked your performance, I think they.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
But it's me because I put you in that chair,
Yeah, I think it's a good mixture. It's
you showed up and you were there and you knew your lines.
Interesting enough, it's kind of a mixture of me and you. It's kind of so I do think that's fascinating.
You know what it's like, honestly? Like, the director ends up being kind of like your agent or your manager, and that it's like, do you know your lines? Are you going to be there on time?
Yeah.
Like, because it's like a low budget production, I'm handling all that.
Right.
Whereas a lot of actors have dedicated people they work with their entire careers that are like making sure they know everything. I don't want to go over on my time, but
no.
I hope people enjoy this. I have a new movie coming out.
Right. That's what So I want to try to cover as much as possible, which we have already. So I do. Yeah. So first of all, I am making this longer, specifically the Cody Clarke special.
It's interesting.
Yeah, but I'd honestly like to talk about it for a while, but I want to stay consistent with like the rest of my podcast, so I don't want to go too long, but I do want to get transition.
It's called No Shark.
Yeah, No Shark. I do want to say I got to introduce give a little intro before you talk about the movie. What I think is really, really incredible is that right after you were done with Ramekin 2, which I'm in, you can go check it out on the YouTube channel and on Prime. You just immediately you're like, okay, you wanted to work on this next movie that you just finished called No Shark. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the movie's called No Shark. I shot it over the summer. I was coming fresh off of finishing editing, releasing Ramekin 2, and I had this idea, and I knew that like if I waited on it, it wouldn't be beach weather anymore, and it takes place entirely on beaches. So I just had to go with the momentum that I had.
How did you have
off that project?
I don't know how you how did you not totally burn out? I'm so impressed by that.
Because if you have the momentum, you don't burn out. You burn out when you stop moving. It's like the saying of I'll sleep when I'm dead or something like that. It's like if I were to stop for like a couple months and then try to make it, regardless of weather, you don't have the same aptitude. Like it just condenses. It feels like all one movie that you worked on. Like Ramekin and No Shark, it feels like all one period of time that didn't end. But if you stop, it's like if you stop working out for like a week.
Right.
Like when you work out again, you're gonna feel it. But if you work out every day, even if it's just a little bit, you don't have that same burnout. So when I have opportunities to keep working, I try and do it because I know that if I don't, it's gonna mess up. But yeah, No Shark. I came up with the idea. I knew it was time sensitive. That's what I usually look for. Is the idea I'm having time sensitive? So do I have to do it right now? Because if I don't, the weather will change or some actor will be gone or whatever. I prioritize always time sensitive ideas. If I had waited, I would have to shoot No Shark this coming summer instead of last. And like now it's it's almost released. It's almost up on Amazon and stuff. It's okay. So No Shark is about a young woman, early 20s or whatever, who her life stream is to be eaten by a shark, and it's about her going to all these various beaches in Brooklyn trying to be eaten by a shark, and it's this very angsty existential thing with a lot of humor in it too. But it's just I wanted to do a movie that felt like you were reading a book. So when you watch it, it's all voiceover narration, very meticulously written and then read by the actress. Oh, sorry, written by me, but read by the actress.
There's almost a poetry to it, which is what I got. It took me a second because I wasn't expecting that what the movie was about.
Yeah, it's not I've seen a ton of movies. It's not anything I've seen before whatsoever. I've seen it done in small doses or for scenes or whatever. I've never seen it done straight through for an entire movie where you're watching something where you're essentially listening to an audiobook, but you're watching corresponding imagery that's tied into it.
Yeah. You essentially kind of did write a book with visuals.
Yeah, I wrote it. It came out to about 25,000 words, which is about what a novella would be. So like a short novel.
Right. And it reads like it also.
Yeah. It's broken up into chapters. Each new beach is a new chapter. You can stop and start the movie whenever you want, basically. Like as long as you hit a chapter break, you're good. And there's like 12 chapters. And I just wanted to create something that hadn't been done before. Like it's a new way to make a movie. Like it's a new movie, but it's also a new way to make a movie. So somebody can watch No Shark and be like, oh wow, I could actually do something like this. It's a way you can bridge literature and film in a way that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, no, I would talk about it more, where we're coming closer to an end. But I do very much appreciate that you're always trying something new and unique, and I like to see when I see filmmakers. Like I just saw Steven Soderbergh's. I don't know if you saw his newest movie. Kimmy, yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so what I like about it so much, what I like about Soderbergh is that he'll really try to simplify it enough so that sometimes he'll shoot on an iPhone, or in this sense, he like shoots it with, and he doesn't really use professional lighting. It's so you can see that from the film, but the film still comes out really great.
Yeah.
And it kind of, for me at least, as somebody who's trying to work as an actor or aspiring filmmaker, and when I see stuff like yours, it kind of gives me confidence that perhaps it's not totally out of my reach. So I do very much enjoy that. Okay, the last couple of minutes, we want to do some rapid fire questions, okay?
I just want to say one thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
Because I think it's important, and it's something you've experienced from going from stand-up comedy to acting. When you try something new, that's when you find out what carries over is what you actually are. So the aspects of yourself that carry over from as a writer through completely different movies, because Ramekin's very different from No Shark, but the thing that keeps it similar is what I am and what I have to say. So what you have to say as a comedian is also going to be what you have to say as an actor. It's just going to be that kernel of truth within you that never leaves. So even if you became like a carpenter or something, how you approach that is what's distinctly you. So with each project, they're different. I never try and make the same movie twice, but every movie feels like a Cody Clarke movie. Yeah. Because of that.
You do have a very distinct style, which I think that's pretty impressive. Okay, so rapid fire questions. I listen to your podcast, and you kind of do a similar thing, so I'm going to just copy paste. Okay.
I do a segment called Stupid Questions.
Yeah.
By the way.
So this is called Incredibly Smart Questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's basically the same thing, but they're just said from my mouth, so why not give myself the compliment? This is the first time I'm doing the segment.
Okay.
So, Okay, first question I want to know, favorite movie. Now, I remember the last time we talked, you said Bad Bunny. Was not Bad Bunny, but there was a movie called something about a rabbit or something like that.
Buffalo 66?
Maybe. It was about a director.
Brown Bunny?
Brown Bunny, yes. Well, I remember you mentioned that, but...
I mentioned it.
Yeah, okay, but...
my
comes to
go-to
mind.
answer always is Buffalo 66. A movie by a filmmaker named Vincent Gallo, also an actor. He acts in it as well. To me, it just... The humor hits, the romance hits, the drama hits, the suspense hits. Everything that I look for, there's some version of it in that movie. So it's a very, like, desert island movie for me where, like, I can laugh, I can cry, I can feel... You know, like, it just hits on all fronts for me.
I've not seen it.
You'd like it.
I really want to check. Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
I give you the seal of approval guarantee.
I'm totally gonna check it out. Okay, favorite director if you have one, or favorite
director. It's funny because it's a hard one because if you've made a movie, you understand that like a filmmaker is different than the director. So like for me, a filmmaker is the synthesis of writing, directing, editing.
Right. So favorite filmmaker then, let's go.
I would say favorite filmmaker is Woody Allen.
Woody Allen. By the way, funny enough, I was watching a movie and it hit me. Like I saw the influence, which is interesting. I'm like, I was gonna mention that to him. Like this kind of, there definitely is some Woody Allen here.
Yeah,
so.
because I think it's because he writes really well for women. Notoriously, he writes really good parts for women. To me, cinematically, I think the purpose of making art is to see women. I don't know why anyone would ever photograph a man.
See, I think this is where me and you disagree.
Yeah, I don't find men interesting.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I find men fascinating. So I think that's an interesting contrast between you and I.
Hey, you know, I support you and your lifestyle. No, what I mean is that the way I connect to art is like a statue of a beautiful goddess, or like it's a long through line throughout all of art history is like depictions of women and the beauty of women and the complexity of women and the mystery of women. That's what I'm interested in as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a writer. I like that, and I see that in Woody Allen's writing. Like people think of Woody Allen as like, you know, his persona on screen and like that vibe. But if you really look at his movies, there's always these really interesting parts for women, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. And I find that carries over into my own work, where women get to play these amazingly complex and weird and strange characters. Like the idea of like a woman that wants to be eaten by a shark. That's, pardon the pun, that's a part that somebody could sink their teeth into as an actress that is different than what they usually give. They're given. They're usually given like angry ex-girlfriend or disappointed current girlfriend, or like I'm just trying to make it and I'm a little weird. You know, like all these weird tropes that like aren't that stimulating intellectually for an actress.
I'm a woman in her 50s that just got divorced, and
I'm interested in like what happens if a girl has a porcelain cup that's controlling her mind. Like it's just like it's.
No, I think that's it. Yeah. Dude, the ideas that you come up with are fascinating. Okay.
Thank you.
Last question. Favorite actor.
Favorite actor. Ooh, that's a great.
We got in the last 30 seconds. Yeah.
This is something I never get asked.
Really?
You have to understand this. People always ask filmmakers what their favorite filmmakers are, directors, movies. They never get asked what their favorite actor is.
Right.
My favorite actor is Sylvester Stallone.
Really?
Yes.
See, you're such a strange guy, man. In some ways, because I just would not expect that to come out of your mouth. Sylvester Stallone. Okay.
He's my favorite actor.
Yeah.
I could work with him tomorrow if he would have me.
Really?
First of all, I like him as a filmmaker. I like him as a writer. He's competent in both.
Oh.
Rocky is one of my favorite movies. I love the Rocky series.
Yeah.
Except for, I think Creed 2 sucks. Like, it's just not, you can't even defend that movie. It's just so bad.
Yeah.
Some people might like it. I try not to draw dividing lines on movies. Creed 2 is horrible. Right. First Creed is fantastic. I just love Stallone. When I think of like what I want to look at, on screen as far as like a man, I want to see Stallone in all his range. So I want to see him as older Stallone. I want to see him as jacked like Rambo 2 Stallone. Right. I want to see him as like early Rocky, like unsure of himself. He just hits like all the things that I like. Yeah. So I would go with Sylvester Stallone.
I just think it's fascinating because I always think that I have an idea of what you're gonna say, and I think I'm rarely right, and I think that's really cool. So, anyways, guys, that's the podcast. Thank you, Cody. I wish we could talk some more, but we're literally going over the time right now. And this is Matt.
It's a good episode to people.
I think it's gonna be really good. I can't wait for the clips. All right, stay tuned, everybody.
Take care.